I shouldn't have stayed. I knew it the moment she opened the door, barefoot, holding the frame like she wasn't sure she wanted me inside. Her name was Clara. Mid-40s, maybe, though she carried herself with the kind of quiet that made years seem softer on her. She'd just moved into the building, a box still unopened on the hallway floor. I was supposed to help her fix a leaking faucet. Nothing more. A neighborly favor. But the silence between us when I stepped inside, it wasn't neighborly at all. Her apartment smelled faintly of coffee and lavender, though the cup on the counter had gone cold. The faucet hissed in the background, dripping into a small bowl she'd set under it. She tried to make small talk while I tightened the valve, but her words trailed off too quickly. I talked too much, filling the air with nervous chatter. About the weather, the noise of the street below, even about the old landlord. She only half answered, like every word she gave away was a debt she'd rather not pay. But when I looked up, I caught her watching me. Not the way neighbors do. More like she was searching for something and almost ashamed to be caught. She straightened, clearing her throat. "You've changed," she said softly, almost as if it slipped out without her permission. I froze, wrench still in hand. "Only because of you," I blurted, and immediately hated how raw it sounded. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to take back what she said, or maybe to scold me for mine. But she didn't. She just crossed her arms, leaned against the doorway, and let the silence thicken. I could hear my own pulse. She broke it first. "You're too young to say things like that. And you're too careful to hear them," I replied, before I could stop myself. My voice was steadier than I felt. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but like she was measuring me, testing how much of that was impulse and how much was truth. I looked away, fiddling with the faucet, pretending the stubborn metal needed all my attention. My hands shook slightly, but I hoped she didn't notice. The room felt smaller now, the air heavier. When I stood to leave, she stepped closer, just enough that our arms brushed, just enough to make me realize she hadn't moved out of the way. My throat tightened. I could have said something casual. I could have made it nothing. But she looked at me, and for once, she didn't look away. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. I swallowed. My voice came out rougher than I intended. "Neither should I." The drip of the faucet filled the silence between us again. Only this time, neither of us moved to fix it. And then she did something so slight it almost didn't count. Her hand lingered on the edge of the counter, fingers brushing mine when I reached for my tools. It wasn't an accident. Not this time. I left the wrench where it was, meeting her eyes. Something unspoken shifted in that moment. A line we couldn't cross without changing everything. Her breath caught. She opened her mouth, and then the sound of a key rattled at her front door. The key at the door never turned. Whoever it was had gone. Still, the sound was enough to scatter the moment, like someone had dropped glass between us. Clara stepped back, smoothing the front of her blouse, her face returning to its practiced calm. "Sorry," she murmured, reaching for the cold coffee on the counter. Though she didn't drink it. "My sister has a spare key. She likes to check in." She said it lightly, but her hand trembled just enough that I noticed. Something in her life wasn't steady, something she wasn't saying. I picked up my wrench, not because the faucet needed it, but because I needed something to do. My chest still ached with the weight of her whisper. I shouldn't be doing this. Dangerous. Off limits. She was twice my age. Recently moved here after what the neighbors called a messy divorce. I wasn't supposed to know that, but in buildings like ours, secrets travel faster than water leaks. And here I was, standing in her kitchen, pretending this was just a favor. I told myself to leave, to be polite, thank her, and go. But then she sat down at the small kitchen table, her shoulders rounding as if the energy had drained out of her all at once. She looked nothing like the confident woman I'd imagined when she first moved in. "I thought moving here would feel like starting over," she said quietly, not looking at me. But it's just empty. Her words landed heavier than she meant them to. I stayed where I was, not sure if I should answer. She rubbed the rim of her mug with her thumb, lost in thought. You ever feel like you're invisible in your own life? She added, almost to herself. My throat tightened. I wanted to tell her I saw her, that I couldn't stop seeing her, but the words stuck. Instead, I said, sometimes, more than I'd like to admit. She glanced up, surprised, maybe even relieved. For a second, she wasn't the woman with the perfect posture, the polite smile. She was just human, wounded in ways I couldn't name. I caught myself staring at the faint crease between her brows, the way her hair slipped loose near her temple, the soft tremor in her hand when she set the mug down. Every detail felt too sharp, too dangerous to notice. I told myself again, leave. But when I moved toward the door, she stopped me. Wait. Her voice was softer now, stripped of its defenses. I turned. She was standing closer than before, close enough that the space between us felt charged. Her hand lifted, hesitant, then settled on my arm. Just her fingertips, as if she wasn't sure she had the right. The touch was barely there, but it burned straight through me. Would you stay a little longer? I should have said no. Instead, my mouth opened, and I almost said the one thing that would change everything. I stayed. I shouldn't have, but when her fingers lingered on my arm, my legs refused to move toward the door. Clara poured fresh coffee, though neither of us seemed thirsty. The kitchen light flickered faintly above us, the bulb buzzing in the silence. She sat across the table, but her chair was angled slightly closer, as though even she didn't trust the boundary. We spoke about safe things at first, her boxes still unpacked, my classes at the university, the noise from the street below. But our words were scaffolding for something else. Beneath them was the hum of everything unsaid. At one point, she laughed softly at something clumsy I said, covering her mouth like she wasn't used to laughing anymore. The sound made my chest ache. She looked younger for that brief second, and I wanted, more than I should have, to be the reason she laughed again. When she reached across the table for the sugar, her wrist brushed against my hand. She froze. I did too. Neither of us pulled away at first. I swallowed hard, shifting in my chair, but my fingers twitched as though they wanted to stay near hers. That's when her phone buzzed on the counter. The sudden noise snapped us apart. She rose quickly, voice tight as she answered. Yes. No, I'm fine. I told you I'd call later. I tried not to listen, but I caught fragments. Her sister, checking up again. Clara's tone was strained, defensive. When she hung up, she stayed at the counter for a long moment, shoulders stiff. Cleared my throat. You don't have to explain. She turned, eyes glistening in the dim light. I wasn't going to. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable this time. It was heavy, like standing on the edge of something dangerous. I pushed my chair back, trying to give her space. I should probably go, I muttered, though the words tasted wrong. She stepped toward me. Do you want to? The question caught me off guard. She wasn't asking if I should. She was asking if I wanted to. I looked at her, really looked, at the faint shadows beneath her eyes, the way her lips pressed together to hide whatever trembled inside. I wanted to say no. I wanted to leave before this became something neither of us could take back. But the truth lodged in my throat. I don't know, I said finally, and it was the closest thing to honesty I'd managed all night. Her breath hitched, almost a sigh, almost something else. She closed the distance between us just slightly, enough that I felt her warmth. The faucet behind us dripped once, then twice. Her hand lifted, hovering near my chest, like she was about to steady herself against me, then hesitated. We both stood there, caught between restraint and surrender. And for the first time, I wasn't sure which way it would break. The room was too quiet, Only the dripping faucet and the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the air. Clara's hand still hovered near me, suspended in hesitation, until finally she pulled it back. But her eyes never left mine. "You don't know what you're doing," she said softly, though it sounded like she was trying to convince herself more than me. "Maybe not," I admitted. My voice was unsteady, but the truth had to come out. "But I know what I feel when I'm here." Her face tightened, not with anger, but with something closer to pain. She turned slightly away, running her fingers through her hair, exhaling as though the air itself was heavy. "I've just come out of something. Years wasted, promises broken. I told myself I couldn't." Her voice cracked, and she stopped, swallowing hard. I stepped closer before I could think better of it. "You don't have to finish. I get it." "No, you don't," she said sharply, spinning back toward me. Her eyes glistened in the dim kitchen light. "You don't know what it feels like to rebuild yourself when you're already halfway through your life. To look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back." Her honesty knocked the breath out of me. For a second, I couldn't speak. Then I found myself whispering, "I see you, right now, more than you think." The words slipped free before I could catch them. And for a long moment, she just looked at me, as though no one had ever dared to say that to her. Her lips parted, but no words came. She reached out again, this time with less hesitation, her hand brushing my chest. The touch was barely there, yet it felt like fire through my shirt. I should have stepped back. I should have pulled the air out of this moment before it burned us both. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned forward just slightly, enough to feel the warmth of her breath. The space between us had collapsed to a whisper. Her eyes flicked down, then up again, torn between refusal and surrender. Then, a sharp knock at the door. We both froze, like guilty children caught where they shouldn't be. Clara's hand dropped instantly. My pulse raced as she stiffened, straightening her blouse, her composure snapping back into place. Neither of us moved to answer. The knocking came again, softer this time, then faded. Whoever it was, they'd left. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, Clara spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you don't leave now, I don't know if I'll be able to stop." I stood there, breath caught in my chest, staring at her across the space we just almost closed. Neither of us said anything more. We didn't need to. The silence was already louder than words. I should have left. Every nerve in me screamed it, but my feet stayed planted. Clara's words still hung in the air. "If you don't leave now, I don't know if I'll be able to stop." And then she looked at me differently, like something had just clicked. Her eyes narrowed, studying me as though she was searching for a memory. "You remind me of someone," she said slowly. I tried to breathe normally, but my chest tightened. "Who?" Her gaze softened, but her voice wavered. "My ex-husband's brother. You have the same way of speaking, the same restless eyes." The words hit like a stone to the ribs. I knew her divorce had been ugly. Everyone whispered about it in the building, but I hadn't known she carried his shadow everywhere she looked. "That's not me," I said quickly, maybe too quickly. "I know." She shook her head, stepping back, almost ashamed of her own thought. "But when you spoke earlier, when you said you see me, no one said that to me since before he left. And for a second, I couldn't separate the two. It shouldn't have mattered. But suddenly I felt like an imposter, stealing words that weren't mine to give. I didn't mean," I started, but she cut me off. "You meant it." Her tone was sharp, almost desperate. "And that's why I don't know what to do with you." The honesty between us was unbearable. I wanted to reach for her, to erase the ghost she carried, but my body wouldn't move. Instead, I asked the wrong question. "Do you wish I was him?" Her silence was louder than any answer. She didn't look away, but she didn't deny it either. Something twisted in me. Jealousy, hurt, longing all tangled together. I almost laughed at how pathetic it sounded in my own head. A boy wounded because the woman he shouldn't want was haunted by someone else. Before I could speak again, her phone buzzed on the counter. This time, she didn't move to silence it. The name Anna lit up the screen, her sister again. Clara whispered, almost to herself, "She'll know if I don't answer." "Then answer," I said, though the words came out harsher than I intended. She picked up, forcing her voice into a bright tone. "Hey, Anna. Yes, I'm fine. No, I'm not alone, actually. A neighbor helped with the sink." My stomach flipped. The way she said neighbor, like it erased everything that had happened in this room. When she hung up, she avoided my eyes, fiddling with the coffee mug that had long gone cold. I couldn't stop myself. "Is that all I am to you?" The question landed like a crack in the wall between us. She finally looked up, her expression raw, torn wide open. "I don't know what you are to me," she admitted. Her voice trembled, but the words were undeniable. And suddenly the balance shifted. She wasn't the one in control anymore. Her words clung to the air. "I don't know what you are to me." For a moment, neither of us moved. It was as if the room itself held its breath, waiting to see which way we would break. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Then let me tell you what you are to me." Clara's eyes flickered with fear and something else. Hope, maybe, though she tried to hide it. "You're the first person I can't stop thinking about," I said quietly. "Even when I know I shouldn't. Even when I tell myself it's wrong." She closed her eyes, as if the words were both a gift and a wound. "Don't say that," she whispered. "Don't make this harder than it already is." "I can't take it back," I admitted. "I don't want to." Her hands tightened around the mug until I thought it might shatter. Then suddenly, she set it down with a soft clink and crossed the small space between us. "I'm not who you think I am," she said. Her voice trembled, but her gaze was steady. "I'm tired. I'm scarred. I'm older. And I've been broken enough times to know this could destroy you." I shook my head. "You're exactly who I think you are. And that's why I'm still standing here." Her breath caught. For a moment, I thought she might laugh at me, dismiss me as naive. But she didn't. Instead, she reached up and touched my face, tentative, as though she was afraid I'd disappear if she pressed too hard. The gentleness of it undid me. All the restraint I'd tried to hold shattered under that single touch. "I shouldn't want this," she said, her voice breaking. "Neither should I," I murmured, echoing the words we'd spoken hours ago. And then the silence closed in, thick and unrelenting, until there was only one way to break it. I leaned forward, slow enough that she could stop me if she wanted. She didn't. Our lips met, soft at first, then deeper, carrying everything we hadn't dared to say. It wasn't polished or perfect. It was hesitant, trembling, almost desperate. But it was real. When we pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. She was breathing hard, her hand still cupping my cheek. "What are we doing?" she whispered, almost in despair. I gave the only answer I had. "Something we'll regret if we don't." Her laugh was shaky, but her arms slid around me anyway. She held me like she hadn't let herself hold anyone in years. And for the first time since I'd stepped into her apartment, she didn't look like she was hiding. No promises were made. No grand declarations. Just two people standing in the wreckage of restraint, holding onto the one thing that felt honest. The faucet dripped once, then went quiet. And in that stillness, something between us finally broke free. By the time I left Clara's apartment, the city outside was still, caught between midnight and dawn. The air was cool against my skin, but I carried her warmth with me, like a secret I couldn't put down. I thought about the faucet I'd come to fix, the dripping that had filled the silence for hours. Now it was quiet, as though even the apartment knew something had shifted. Clara had walked me to the door, her hand brushing mine one last time before letting go. No promises, no plans. Just a look that said more than words ever could. A look that admitted what we tried to deny, and that neither of us could undo. As I stood in the hallway, I realized what had changed. She wasn't just the neighbor who had moved in with boxes full of shadows. And I wasn't just the boy filling silence with nervous words. Somewhere in the middle, in the pauses and the almost confessions, we had both been seen. That was the danger, the reason she whispered I shouldn't be doing this. Because it wasn't only desire that pulled us closer. It was recognition. Two people at different ends of life's curve, meeting in the middle where it wasn't supposed to make sense. And yet, it did. I remembered the first time she looked at me, the hesitation in her eyes, the way she compared me to her past. And I thought about my own stubbornness, my refusal to walk away when everything said I should. That's what love, whatever this was, whatever it might become, demanded, the willingness to step into the risk of being seen, flaws and all. Not perfect, not clean, but real. I don't know what tomorrow will look like. Maybe she'll close her door again, rebuild her walls, pretend nothing happened. Maybe I'll pretend too. Or maybe, when we cross paths in the hallway, we'll let the silence between us mean something different this time. All I know is that tonight we let ourselves feel. And that's enough to change everything. The truth is, love doesn't come wrapped in certainty. It comes in drips and pauses, in trembling hands and stolen glances. Comes when it shouldn't, with people you never expect. And sometimes, it comes in a broken kitchen, under the hum of a flickering light, when neither of you are ready but both of you need it anyway. That's the part no one tells you. The risk isn't in falling. The risk is in not letting yourself fall at all. And as I walked away from Clara's door, I knew. Some regrets are worth having.